Okay, so we're going to deal with the show me, tell me vehicle safety questions. And so about the questions, the examiner will ask you one tell me question where you will explain how you carry out a safety task at the start of your test before you start driving. You'll only be asked one. There's 14 questions in all. You'll only be asked one of them, but you don't know which one it's going to be. So you need to know all 14 of them. But you need to know all 14 of them anyway for your general driving to keep your car safe on the road. So we're going to deal with the first question. So the first tell me question is, tell me how you check the brakes are working before starting a journey. And the answer is this. Brakes should not feel spongy or slack. Brakes should be tested as you set off. The vehicle should not pull to one side. Now that's all you have to say on your test, but we're actually going to do it so you fully understand what the question is. So, first of all, we put our foot on the brake pedal. Hopefully you can see that. And I push gently down to make sure the brake doesn't feel spongy or slack, and it feels fine. So I know that that's okay. Secondly, we're going to test them as we move off. So we're just going to move off. So we're driving along and I gently brake to make sure they don't pull to one side. And as you can see, the car stops in a straight line. So I know the brakes are working. And that's the first question. Okay, so number 2 of the show me, tell me question is, tell me where you'd find the information for the recommended tyre pressures for this car and how the tyres should be checked. And the answer is this. In the manufacturer's guide, use a reliable pressure gauge. Check and adjust the pressures when the tyres are cold. Don't forget the spare tyre, and remember to refit the valve caps. So that's all you need to say on the test, but once again, we're actually going to go through it so you fully understand the question. So we look for the manufacturer's guide, which is, in our case, this one. And in it, it shows you what the tyre pressures should be. So let's see if we can find that. You probably can't see it on the camera, but here it tells us what the tyre pressures are. Okay, so then let's go around and look at the front wheel. So here we have the valve. This is the valve cap, so we unscrew the valve cap. We use a reliable pressure gauge, which is the type found in most petrol garages, or you can buy them from car shops for home. So this is the valve here, okay? So we put the pressure gauge on, we check what the pressure of the tyre is, and we put air in if we need to. Don't forget to refit the valve cap. And we check the tyre pressure when the tyres are cold. Don't forget the spare tyre, so let's have a look for the spare tyre. My junk out the way. Right, and under here, if you look in there, there's a spare tyre under there. Okay, so you mustn't forget that. And that's how we answer that question. So tell me question number 3. Tell me how you make sure your head restraint is correctly adjusted so it provides best protection in the event of a crash. And the answer you say is this. The head restraint should be adjusted so the rigid part, that's the middle part of the head restraint, so the middle part of the head restraint is at least as high as the eyes or the top of the ears and as close to the back of the head as is comfortable. So let's just have a little look at that, shall we? Now on this particular vehicle, there's a button here, we push in with our finger and we can adjust the head restraint up and down. So I put mine about here, so the rigid part, which is the middle part, is level with my eye. And that's question number 3. Okay, tell me question number 4. Tell me how you check the tyres to ensure they have sufficient tread depth and their general condition is safe to use on the road. The answer is this. No cuts or bulges, 1.6mm of tread depth, that's minimum, across the central 3/4 of the breadth of the tyre, and all around the entire circumference. Now let's go and have a look at the tyre so we can see exactly what that question is about. So as we can see, on the side of the tyre, no cuts or bulges. The tread depth, which is this, has to be a minimum of 1.6 millimetres deep, and it's got to be at least across 3/4 of the width of the tyre, and it has to be all the way round the circumference. And that's how we answer that question. So, tell me question number 5. Tell me how you check the headlights and the tail lights are working. You don't have to actually exit the vehicle, but we're going to demonstrate the question. So, the answer is, explain you'd operate the switch, turn on the ignition if necessary, then walk around the vehicle. But as it's a tell me question, you don't actually need to walk around the vehicle, but we're going to do it for purposes of this demonstration. So, the car is on, we operate the switch like this, then we get out and have a look at the lights. So let's go and do that. So I can see my headlights are working. We go around the back of the vehicle. And I can see that the tail lights are working as well. So that's how we answer that question. Question number 6 of the tell me questions. Tell me how you know if there's a problem with your anti-lock braking system. And the answer is, warning light should illuminate on the dashboard. Let's have a look for that warning light. Now on this particular car, when I turn the car on, all the warning lights come on while the computer does its safety checks. And we're going to look here for one that says ABS, and that's our ABS warning light. So watch. There we are, ABS. So that will be the warning light that comes on the dashboard, but it's usually in red. And that's how we answer that question. Okay, so tell me question number 7. And this is, tell me how you check the direction indicators are working. And the answer is this. Explain you'd operate the switch, turn the ignition on if necessary, then walk around the vehicle and have a look. Now again, it's a tell me question, so you don't have to physically do it. But once again, for the purpose of this demonstration, we're going to actually do it so you fully understand what the answer means. So we operate the switch, and then I'll go out and check the direction indicator to the left is working. Yep, and we walk around the back of the vehicle. We can see that's working. Now, staying here, I'm just going to turn the direction indicator switch to the right, and we're going to check our right indicators. Check our right indicator. Yes, we can see that's working. And we walk round to the front of the vehicle. And once again, we can see that our front indicator's working. And that's how we answer that one. Okay, so now we're going to do question number 8. So the examiner may ask you this one. Tell me how you check the brake lights are working on this car. And the answer is this. Explain you'd operate the brake pedal, then make use of reflection in windows and doors, or ask someone to help. So I'm going to ask John, who's doing the filming for me, to help. So what he's going to do now, he's going to go around to the back of the car and he's going to watch me operate the brake pedal so you can see if my brake lights are working. Right, question number 9. Tell me how you check the power assisted steering is working before starting a journey. And the answer is this. If the steering becomes heavy, the system may not be working properly. So before starting the journey, 2 simple checks can be made. Gentle pressure on the steering wheel, maintained while the engine is started, should result in a slight but noticeable movement as the system begins to operate. Let's do that. Gentle pressure on the steering wheel. Yep, I can feel that that's working correctly. Alternatively, turning the steering wheel just after moving off will give an immediate indication that the power assistance is functioning. So let's do that. Yep, I can tell that the steering's working fine. And that's how we answer that question. Number 10. Tell me how you switch on the rear fog lights and explain when you'd use them. So, the answer is this. You operate the switch, turning on the dipped headlights if necessary. Check the warning light is on, and then we're going to explain the use. And we use the fog lights when visibility is 100 metres or less. So that's when visibility is reduced to 100 metres or less. Now I'm actually going to operate the fog light. Once again, you don't need to do this on your driving test, you just need to tell him, but we're going to actually do it so you understand. So we'll make sure the car is on, operate our lights, and then operate the fog light. And I can tell the fog light's on because the warning light's on the dashboard. And that's how we do that. Tell me question number 11. Tell me how you switch your headlight from dipped beam to main beam and explain how you know the main beam is on. The answer is this. Operate the switch with the ignition on if necessary. Check the main beam warning light. So that's exactly what we're going to do. So the car is on, we switch our dip headlights on, and we operate the switch by pushing, in our case, pushing that switch forward. So we push the switch forward, and I can see that the main beam warning light is on the dashboard, and then we switch it back off again. And that's how you answer that question. So, question number 12. Now this is something you will have to physically do on your driving test. We need to open the bonnet of the car. On your lesson, when we do the show me tell me lesson, I'll show you how to open the bonnet. So, open the bonnet. Tell me how you check the engine has sufficient oil. So, what we do is we identify the dipstick or the oil level and describe how we check the oil against the minimum and maximum mark. So that's exactly what we're going to do. We open the bonnet, we pull the lever under here, and you can hear a click. That's the bonnet opening. Then we open the bonnet. This is how we open the bonnet. We put our left hand under there and gently support the weight of the bonnet. We put our right hand under here and we slide across till we feel the lever. So if you look at the lever, you can see as you slide across, it releases the catch. Okay. Holding the bonnet up, we pull out the safety arm, we pop it in the hole, and that holds the bonnet up. That's how we open the bonnet. Now, the question was, open the bonnet, tell me how I can check the engine's got sufficient oil. Well, again, you don't actually have to do this bit, but for the sake of argument, we're going to actually show you how it works. So, identify the dipstick, which is this one. We pull the dipstick out, we give it a wipe. We pop the dipstick back in, we pull it out again, and check, I don't know if you can see that, but we've got the high and the low mark, and we check that the oil's between the two marks, which it is, so we know we've got sufficient engine oil. And finally, pop the dipstick back in, and then we close the bonnet. And this is how we close the bonnet. Support the weight at the bonnet, release the safety arm, pop it back into its holder, and bring the bonnet down to roughly a foot from the bottom of the car there, and then we just drop it. It closes. And to make sure it is closed, just give it a little push to make sure it's shut properly. And that's how we answer that question. So there are another 2 under the bonnet questions. So the second question he may ask you could be, or in actual fact is question number 13. He may say, open the bonnet and tell me how I can check the engine's got sufficient coolant. So we've opened our bonnet as we explained, and then we identify the coolant, which is this one. It's the pink fluid because it has antifreeze in it. And we need to make sure it's between the minimum and the maximum on the levels. And if it is, we know we have sufficient coolant. And lastly, question number 14 will be, tell me how you can check the vehicle has sufficient brake fluid. So again, we need to identify where the brake fluid is. So we look under the bonnet, we identify the brake fluid, and we check it's between the maximum and the minimum. And if it is, we know we have sufficient brake fluid. And that's how we answer those last two questions. Okay, the next set of questions are called show me questions. You'll be asked one of these whilst you're driving along in the car. There's 7 of them. You don't know which one you're going to be asked, so you need to know all 7. But again, you need to know how to do all 7 for your general driving. So, show me question number 1. And it will be asked like this. When it's safe to do so, show me how you wash and clean the rear windscreen. So, what we do while driving along, we operate the switch. And to do it on this vehicle, we twist this down until the water pumps out on the rear windscreen and the wiper cleans it. Like so. Okay, that's how we wash and clean our rear windscreen. Now, another question he may ask, ask you, when it's safe to do so, show me how you wash and clean the front windscreen. And how we would do that is on the same lever. This time we pull it forward, and that's washing and cleaning our front windscreen. In this particular vehicle, it usually gives it another single wipe to wipe off the drips, like so. So we're still driving along. He may ask you this question, which is number 3. When it's safe to do so, show me how you switch on your dipped headlights. So we're driving along. We're not actually driving along, of course, but we're pretending we're driving along. And we operate our dipped headlights like so. Click, click. So it's up 2 clicks. Okay? And then you turn it back off. Question number 4 will be asked like this. When it's safe to do so, show me how you set the rear demister. So how we set the rear demister is here. It says rear. We give it a push and the orange warning light comes on. So we know that we can demist the rear windscreen. Okay? So, question number 5. When it's safe to do so, show me how you operate the horn. So once again, we're pretending we're driving along. We're not actually driving along, but we're pretending. So we're driving along and he asks you to operate the horn. You do it like this. Then you put your hand back on the wheel. Okay, that's question number 5. Question number 6. When it's safe to do so, show me how you demist the front windscreen. And how we do that, we operate the front demister button. So we push that, warning light comes on, and that demists our front windscreen. Okay, and when you finish, turn it back off. Put your hand back on the wheel. Number 7 and final question will be, when it's safe to do so, show me how you open and close your side window. And this is how we do it. So we're driving along, it's an automatic button. This allows us to keep our hand back on the wheel. We push the button, put our hand back on the wheel, the window opens, and then we close it. Same thing in reverse. Pull the button up, put your hand back on the wheel. And they're the 7 show me questions. And that's how we answer all of the questions.